Salam, peace be upon you. We begin with a woven reminder of what we have already certified together in episode 14. We do not begin with space or time or objects. We begin with pure comparison. Our raw input is a comparator graph, events as nodes, and comparison edges that carry only differences in phi, never absolute phi. Every claim must carry a passport that names its window, its instrument lineage, its masks and excisions, its uncertainty and its limits. And even with a passport, no window can speak unless it pays the coherence price, gamma of W, above gamma minimum. And even with coherence, no one may claim structure the data cannot identify. Today we install the next lock, the operational ceiling, Nmax of W, the hard limit on how deep our certified sentence can go. Now let us say the mission in plain, everyday language. Part 12 is where we stop pretending we can see forever. Part 12 is where we draw a hard line and we mean it. We are going to certify that every window has a maximum legal depth of structure it can support. We call that depth Nmax, spelled N, then max. And we are going to treat Nmax not as advice, not as a vibe, not as a polite suggestion, but as a type system for meaning. If we try to speak beyond it, we are not less accurate. We are speaking an illegal sentence. We are not wrong. We are undefined. And in this program, undefined is not allowed into the certified ledger. So this part is severe. It is also liberating, because it removes the biggest hidden poison in science and in human thinking, the habit of squeezing deeper stories out of data than the data can carry. Let us enter this with an image. Imagine we are standing on a mountain at dawn, looking across a valley. At first light, we can see the valley floor, the river, the trees. As the sun rises, we can see more. But there is still a limit. No matter how long we stare, we cannot see the pattern on a bird's feather from 10 kilometers away. It is not that the feather pattern does not exist. It is that our window, our viewpoint, our optics, our atmosphere, our distance, our whole situation has a ceiling. That is Nmax. The universe can be deep. Reality can have endless layers. But our certified sentence, inside any window, is finite. Now let us connect this to what episode 14 is actually doing without breaking the firewall. Episode 14 is a compiler. It is not telling a story of what happens. It is laying down the timeless rules under which anything can be publicly read at all. We are not describing motion or evolution. We are describing what is allowed to be certified from comparisons. And our language is strict. The only primitive is phi, a cyclic order field, phi from x to s1, meaning phi assigns each event a position on a circle, not a position in space and not a time on a clock. Public meaning is only differences, delta phi, inside the licensed finite window. No window, no claim. No passport, no structure. And our readouts come in triunity. Omega for cadence, kappa for texture, nu for drift. Those are readouts of one differentiation, not primitives we smuggle in. Good. Now here is the danger we are curing in part 12. Even if we obey passports, even if we obey coherence, even if we obey identifiability, we can still overreach by trying to extract a deeper derivative structure than the window can support. This is the temptation of depth inflation. It looks like sophistication. It looks like intelligence. It looks like we are seeing more. But beyond the ceiling, it is fiction dressed in mathematics. So let us make the idea of depth very concrete. When we say depth here, we mean differentiation depth. We mean how many layers of local structure we are trying to pull out of the comparator data. We often speak of jets in this program. A jet is like a local summary of how something varies around the point, up to some order. In everyday language, it is like describing a curve near one spot by saying, first, where it is, second, which way it is leaning, third, how strongly it is bending, and so on. If we were speaking in symbols, which we will not show on screen but we will speak out loud, we would say the n-jet is the structure up to nth order derivatives. But for audio, let us keep it human. N equals 0 means we only claim the base value, the simplest statement. N equals 1 means we also claim a slope, a first tendency, a first direction of change. N equals 2 means we also claim curvature, the bend, the second tendency. N equals 3 means we also claim how curvature itself changes, and so on. Each step deeper is not free. Each step deeper costs information. Each step deeper costs clarity. Each step deeper costs sampling. Each step deeper costs identifiability. And at some point, the window runs out of money. That point is Nmax. Now let us build the simplest analogy that makes this feel inevitable. Imagine we are trying to read a book, but we are only allowed to see the book through a frosted glass window. If the glass is very frosted, we can only see that there are pages. That might be n equals 0. There is text. If the glass is less frosted, we might see lines of text. N equals 1. There are lines. If it is even clearer, we might see words. N equals 2. There are words. If it becomes very clear, we might see letters. N equals 3. There are letters. But if the glass cannot resolve letters, then trying to claim the exact spelling of a word is not bravery. It is hallucination. We might still produce a spelling. Our brain is powerful. Our pattern matching is hungry. Our models are clever. But the information is not there. That is exactly what happens when people claim derivatives beyond Nmax. They are writing letters into a blur. So part 12 says, we will not allow that. Now we need to be precise. What determines Nmax? Nmax is not a magical constant. It is not a law of nature in the sky. It is a property of a licensed window and its passport. It depends on the sampling stencil, which means how we gathered comparisons. It depends on coherence gamma of W, which means how legible the window is. It depends on identifiability, which means whether the data can actually separate the parameters of the structure we claim. It depends on numerical stability because high-order differentiation amplifies noise. And it depends on the operator guards of the pipeline, meaning whether the operations we are applying are defined and stable inside that domain. So Nmax is typed. That word typed matters. It means Nmax is not only a number. It carries a label that says what kind of claim it applies to. Because depth in one sense is not depth in another. For example, a window might support depth 3 for kappa texture, but only depth 1 for omega cadence. Or it might support depth 2 for one region of the graph, but depth 0 for another region that is too sparse or too noisy. So we do not say Nmax equals 5, full stop. We say Nmax for this window, for this extraction class, under this passport, is 5. Now let us pick the compulsory toolchain line, because we must keep the compiler spine in our mouth. Licensed window, then passport and coherence and identifiability, then Nmax and uncertainty, then local lift, then cuts if needed, then excisions, then certified domain D, then A equals D phi tilde, then finite jets up to Nmax, then invariance collapse, then topology and defects, then invariant bases, then stability and entities, then scale stratification, then escape test, then handoff. In part 12, we are installing the Nmax lock in that line, the finite jets up to Nmax. not beyond. Now let us make this emotionally and practically real with examples across scales, but always firewall clean. First, the microscopic scale. Imagine we are using a simple light microscope to look at a cell. We can see the outline. We might see a nucleus. We might see some large organelles if stained, but we cannot see individual proteins folding. We cannot see atoms. The data simply does not contain that depth. What happens if we try anyway? We might take the blurred image, run a fancy algorithm, claim we reconstructed protein folding from it. The algorithm will produce something. It will look detailed. It may even look plausible. But that detail is not in the data. It is in our assumptions. In our language, we try to extract jet order beyond Nmax for that window. Illegal. Now the middle scale, biology and medicine. Think of a medical scan, like a blurry image of tissue. It has a certain resolution. People sometimes claim they can infer very fine structures that are below the instrument's resolving power. They might say, we can see micro changes at the cellular level from a scan that cannot resolve cells. What is that? That is n greater than n max. The extra depth is fiction. Now the large scale, astronomy. Imagine we are looking at a far planet's atmosphere through a telescope. We see a few wavy lines, a spectrum with noise. If the data is limited, we might be able to say there is probably water or something like it. But people often try to extract a full detailed recipe, exact abundances of many molecules, temperature profile, cloud layers, winds, all from a handful of noisy points. Again, the math will produce numbers. It will always produce numbers. The danger is not that math fails. The danger is that math obeys while meaning dies. So we enforce Nmax. Now let us go to the human scale, where this matters for everyday life. Imagine we are judging a person's character from one short clip on social media. That clip is a window. It has a passport, whether we admit it or not. What moment, what context, what camera angle, what editing, what missing parts. But most people do not carry passports. They make naked claims. Now, even if we force passports, the deeper problem remains. Even if we have a clip, we cannot infer infinite depth about the person. The window has a ceiling. We might infer a mood, we might infer a reaction, but claiming deep inner motives, lifelong traits, or future actions from that clip is n greater than n max. It is overfitting of human reality. So n max is not only for laboratories, it is a discipline of honest seeing. Now let us anchor this in a very simple mathematical picture, spoken as audio. When we fit a curve to points, we can fit a simple curve or a very complex curve. If we have 10 points, we can always fit a ninth degree polynomial that passes through all of them perfectly. It will look like a miracle, perfect fit. But between the points, it will often wiggle wildly. It will predict nonsense. That is overfitting. In our language, the ninth degree fit is beyond the operational ceiling. The window cannot support that depth. The perfect fit is not evidence of truth. It is evidence of freedom. So part 12 says, we do not choose n by how pretty the fit looks. We choose n by what the window can support, by n max. Now let us state the core principle as a single sentence you can carry. The universe may be deep. Our certified sentence is finite. Now let us build the three worlds map, but we will speak it in smooth story form. As we increase depth, as we try to speak deeper derivatives, three zones appear. There is a stable zone. In the stable zone, increasing depth improves prediction and remains robust. Different methods agree. Different instruments match. Small perturbations do not destroy the result. Uncertainty remains priced and finite. Then there is a danger zone. In the danger zone, depth is technically possible but fragile. The result becomes sensitive. Different reasonable methods start disagreeing. Uncertainty grows. It might still be useful, but it must be handled with extreme honesty. And it is often better to step back. And then there is the fiction zone. In the fiction zone, depth produces artifacts. The results become method dependent. Replication collapses. Tiny changes produce huge differences. And yet, the patterns often look beautiful. They look like discovery. This is the zone where the human mind is most easily seduced. Nmax is the line that says, the fiction zone is illegal for certification. Now we need to be even more operational. How do we detect that we crossed the ceiling? There are 4 symptoms we can listen for, like a doctor listening for signs. Symptom 1, predictive collapse. It fits the observed data but fails on new data. That is classic overfitting. Symptom 2, method divergence. Different legitimate pipelines give different structures. If structure were real, it would be invariant under allowed redescriptions. If it changes when you change a reasonable method, you are beyond the ceiling. Symptom 3, instability epidemic. Remove one point, the result flips. Shift the window slightly, the result changes wildly. That is the sign of depth inflation. Symptom 4, uncertainty explosion. The error bars on deeper derivatives blow up faster than the derivatives themselves. You are no longer estimating a quantity, you are amplifying noise. These symptoms are not moral judgments, they are failure signatures. And remember our episode 14 rule. Predictions are not future stories. Predictions are forbiddenness footprints. We predict what must fail when we overreach. So our prediction for part 12 is this. Predictive power improves up to n max, then saturates. Beyond n max, you get artifacts, instability, and cross-instrument mismatch. Now let us pick the gate. Part 12 installs the ceiling gate. N must be less than or equal to n max. Spoken plainly, you are only allowed to claim derivatives up to the depth your window can support. If you submit a claim with n above n max, the compiler refuses it. And we go further, because this is a hard ceiling, not a soft warning. Revocation clause. Any output using n greater than n max is illegal and must be deleted from the certified ledger. Not downgraded, not softened, deleted. Because if we allow illegal depth to remain, it will infect everything downstream. It will appear in invariants, it will appear in topology claims, it will appear in entities. The whole compiler will silently become myth. So we are strict. Now we also need to address a misunderstanding. Does Nmax mean reality is shallow? No. Nmax is not a claim about reality. It is a claim about our certified speech inside the window. Reality can be infinitely deep, but our public language, our certified statements, are bounded by what we can publicly extract. So Nmax is epistemic. It is a meaning boundary, not a metaphysical boundary. Now let us connect Nmax to triunity, because we must never lose it. Remember, every certified structure has 3 readouts: omega cadence, kappa texture, nu drift. Those are ways of reading one differentiation. Depth applies to each readout. A window might allow us to certify only a simple cadence pattern, omega at low order, while allowing richer texture, kappa at higher order, depending on the comparisons available, or vice versa. So when we compute Nmax, we compute it in a typed way. We say, this is the ceiling for this kind of extraction. Now, how do we actually compute Nmax without pretending? We do it by conservative methods that measure capacity, not ambition. One method is sample complexity. How many independent comparisons do we actually have? Not how many raw points, but how many independent pieces of information after correlations and constraints. That gives an upper bound on depth. If we have m independent degrees of freedom, we cannot honestly claim more than about m layers of structure, and in practice, far less. Another method is cross-validation plateau. We attempt increasing depth, but we test predictive power on withheld data or on replication windows. The moment predictive power stops improving in a stable way, we have reached the ceiling. And we do not choose the peak, because the peak might be an overfit spike. We choose the plateau onset, the stable region. Another method is numerical conditioning. High-order differentiation is like multiplying noise by a huge amplifier. At some order, the amplifier becomes insane. The condition number explodes. That is a hard, practical ceiling. Another method is uncertainty propagation. We push the measurement error through the differentiation procedure. When the uncertainty of the nth derivative is larger than the derivative itself, we stop. Because then we are not measuring a quantity, we are measuring noise. And another method is the identifiability spectrum from part 11. The Fisher information about higher order structure decays, and the Cramer-Rao bound, which is a lower bound on variance, grows. When the bound becomes so large that the parameter is effectively unconstrained, that depth is illegal. And here is the key discipline. We do not pick the most generous of these. We pick the most conservative. We take the minimum ceiling the method suggests. Then we add a safety margin. Because certification must survive audit. That is how NMAX becomes a real gate, not a political choice. Now let us do the mandatory invariance stress test, spoken as a story. We test whether NMAX depends on forbidden choices. If we refine the window slightly, NMAX might change. And that is allowed because the window changed. But if NMAX changes wildly under small refinements, that is a sign that we are near the danger zone and we must step back. If we change charts, meaning we change the way we label local coordinates in the lifted structure, NMAX as a capacity should not change in its meaning. The numeric computation might look different, but the certified ceiling must be invariant under allowed redescriptions. If cuts appear, we must move the cut and see whether our ceiling determination remains stable. If the ceiling depends on cut placement, then our procedure is not public and must be refused. And if we add a constant to phi, meaning phi goes to phi plus a constant shift around the circle, nothing about capacity should change, because only differences are meaningful. That is our basic invariance. So part 12 demands, NMAX derivation must survive these stress tests, or it is not certified. Now let us pick the falsifier, because we never install a rule without a way to break it. The falsifier for part 12 is simple. If someone can demonstrate stable improvement beyond NMAX without increasing passport capacity, meaning without better sampling, better coherence, or better identifiability, and if that improvement is replicable across windows and instruments, then our ceiling rule is wrong. In everyday language, if someone can consistently read smaller letters through the same frosted glass, with no change in glass, no change in lighting, no change in camera, no change in anything, and yet they can read deeper and predict better, then our idea of a ceiling is false. But we also know a subtlety. Sometimes people appear to beat ceilings by bringing in extra information that was not counted. For example, compressed sensing can recover signals from fewer samples if the signal is known to be sparse. That is not magic. That is extra structure assumptions. That must be placed in the passport. Or super-resolution microscopy beats classical limits by using special tricks. That changes the effective window and its capacity. It is a new passport. It is not a violation of the ceiling rule. It is an upgrade of the window. So our falsifier stands clean. Stable improvement beyond the computed ceiling without any increase in capacity would force us to revise the compiler. That is honest science. Now, let us pick the audit artifact. Because the compiler must leave a ledger trail. For part 12, the audit artifact is the nmax derivation log. It includes the window passport ID. It includes which methods we use to estimate nmax. It includes the conservative synthesis rule. It includes the safety margin. It includes the stress tests and their pass or fail. It includes the ceiling violation traps, meaning tests we ran at depths above the ceiling to confirm they produce artifact signatures. And it includes an artifact diagnosis report that maps failure symptoms to the ceiling breach. In everyday language, we do not just say, "Trust us, the ceiling is 15. We show our receipts. We show the reasons. We show the tests. We show what happens when you overreach. Now let us make this feel like a lived story, because this is audio. We have all watched someone do this in some form. We have watched a person with a few data points tell a grand story. We have watched a pundit with one chart declare a whole future. We have watched a friend read deep motives into one sentence. We have watched ourselves do it. And the pain is that it feels like insight. It feels like intelligence. It feels like seeing the hidden thing. But often, it is just depth inflation. It is the mind trying to climb beyond the ladder length. Part 12 is the part where we stop that addiction. We say, the ladder has a length. The window has a ceiling. If we try to climb higher, we are no longer climbing reality. We are climbing our own imagination. Now, let us connect part 12 back to the core holophase stance in one clean sentence. Episode 14 does not describe reality. It specifies the conditions under which reality can be described at all. And max is one of those conditions. Now let us close with the carry, the line that should echo in the listener. The universe may be deep. Our certified sentence is finite. And let us state the revocation clause with full severity, because this is how we prevent drift. If any certified output is found to use differentiation order n greater than n max for its window and its typed extraction class, that output is void. It is illegal. It must be deleted from the certified ledger and placed into the negative archive as an overreach artifact. No exceptions, no prestige, no beautiful graphs, no emotional attachment. Because in this program, the only beauty that matters is public legibility. And now, with part 12 installed, we have a clean and honest boundary. We know what we can say, how deep we can say it, and where our speech must end. That is not weakness. That is the beginning of a science that cannot lie to itself. Audit artifact for part 12. Passport ID, window definition, coherence report gamma of W with gamma minimum decision, identifiability spectrum and conditioning flags, nmax derivation log with methods and conservative synthesis, invariant stress tests including constant shift in phi, lift shifts, chart change and window refinement, ceiling violation traps and artifact signatures, and the final certified ceiling statement typed to the extraction class. Revocation clause. Any output that crosses nmax is deleted and reclassified as illegal depth. Part 12 complete. The operational ceiling is installed. The compiler now knows how to refuse depth that turns into fiction. Always, peace be upon you.